In policing, routine can vanish in a heartbeat. Tonight, 6 real body cam incidents show how fast calm turns to crisis. A domestic call in Fountain, Colorado, an angry suspect, a charging pit bull, and seconds to survive. A welfare check in Boise becomes a knife and hammer charge down a stairwell. In Denver, a quiet parking lot escalates when a hand drops toward a waistband. Chicago, an on-street contact erupts into a gunfight that leaves an officer wounded. In Delta, a taser fails and an agitated man keeps coming. And in Utica, a late-night foot chase ends with a replica gun that looks tragically real. These are split-second decisions, recorded as they happened, commands, confusion, and the cost of hesitation.
Right now! No!
Boise, Idaho, Thursday, the 3rd of August 2023, just before 11 a.m. Dispatchers at the Boise Police Department receive 3 back-to-back 911 calls from the same number. The caller, 4-year-old Christian Johnson, is frantic and incoherent, asking for law enforcement help, repeating that someone is after him. Each time the line disconnects, he calls again. Dispatchers note the location: 1101 South Dale Street, a small apartment complex on Boise's southeast side. The incident is classified as a welfare check, a standard response when a caller seems in distress but not necessarily criminal. Among the first to hear, the call is Officer Garrett Miller, just beginning his shift. The address catches his attention immediately. Only 2 days earlier, he'd been at the same location after a 911 hang-up. He remembers the man vividly, Christian Johnson, nervous, disoriented, saying he had smoked a bunch of meth and hadn't slept in days. Miller had recognized the symptoms of paranoia then. Now, hearing the same name again, he decides to respond personally. At the same time, Corporal Andrew Johnson also volunteers to assist. Both men roll toward Dale Street in marked patrol cars. Lights off, but radios open. 10:56 a.m. Corporal Johnson arrives first. Body-worn camera footage shows him parking at the base of the 2-story complex. Almost instantly, a man's voice rings out from above, loud, panicked, echoing off the stucco walls. Christian Johnson is on the 2nd floor landing. In one hand, he holds a metal spike and a long hammer. In the other, a K-bar style knife with a large 12-inch blade. When Officer Miller pulls in seconds later, he hears the same shouting. "They're trying to kill me. Somebody's coming for me." Both officers take cover behind their vehicles, weapons drawn but held low. Their voices are steady, projecting upward. "Christian, drop the weapons. Put them down. We just want to talk." Christian looks down but doesn't comply. Instead, he steps closer to the railing, gripping the weapons tighter. He yells again, his words slurred, disconnected, the same paranoia Miller remembered from before. The officers continue issuing commands. "Christian, no one's trying to hurt you. Put the knife down." But his behavior escalates. He suddenly turns, starts down the exterior staircase, both hands raised, knife in the right, hammer and spike in the left. As he reaches the pavement, he stops for a moment, eyes fixed on the officers. Then he charges. Both officers shout warnings. "Stop. Don't come any closer." But Christian keeps running. He lifts both arms above his head, the blades catching the mid-morning light, and closes the distance rapidly, now just 6 to 10 feet away. In those final seconds, Corporal Johnson fires first. The sharp crack of his service weapon splits the night, a single deafening sound that echoes off the walls of the small apartment complex. Almost simultaneously, Officer Miller opens fire, his shots merging with Johnson's in a tight, controlled burst. The volley lasts only moments. A handful of gunfire flashes in the cold air, then silence. When it ends, Christian Johnson staggers, the weapons still clutched loosely in his hands, before collapsing onto the asphalt between two parking stalls. For a heartbeat, no one moves. The body cam footage captures the heavy sound of breathing through the officers' microphones, the faint hiss of radios, and the quiet hum of distant traffic. Both officers remain in their defensive positions, weapons trained forward, scanning for any sign of movement. Then, Corporal Johnson's voice breaks through, steady but urgent. Shots fired. Suspect down. Need medics now. Officer Miller holsters his weapon and steps forward cautiously, eyes fixed on the ground. His boot nudges the knife, sending it sliding out of reach. He follows with the claw hammer and metal spike, kicking both clear of the suspect's reach before moving in closer. The weapons clatter faintly on the asphalt, their metallic sounds sharp against the still air. With the immediate threat neutralized, Miller crouches near the downed man, visually checking for any remaining weapons or movement. Blood darkens the pavement beneath Christian, spreading slowly between the cracks in the asphalt. Moments later, the sound of sirens grows nearer. Flashing red and blue lights reflect across nearby cars as backup units and paramedics rush onto the scene. Officers quickly establish a perimeter, while medics move in to check the suspect's vitals. Despite their efforts, Christian Johnson shows no signs of life. Within minutes, paramedics confirm what's already evident on the body cam. The suspect is unresponsive. He is pronounced deceased at the scene. As investigators arrive, the area transforms into a tightly managed crime scene. Officers mark shell casings, photograph footprints, and document the positions of the weapons: the 12-inch K-bar knife, the claw hammer, and the 14-inch metal spike, each one clearly visible in the footage that would later circulate during the investigation. Forensics teams from the Boise Police Department's Critical Incident Task Force, joined by representatives from the Ada County Prosecutor's Office, begin their meticulous process. Every step is measured, every movement documented. They photograph blood patterns, collect shell casings, and carefully bag the weapons as evidence. Nearby residents, drawn by the noise, watch quietly from their balconies. Some whisper to one another. Others record the flashing lights with their phones. The hum of police radios fills the air, punctuated by brief exchanges between officers as they coordinate the scene. Inside the command vehicle, detectives review dispatch logs and officer statements to reconstruct the timeline. Christian Johnson placed 3 separate 911 calls earlier that evening, each one increasingly frantic, requesting help. During his contact with Officer Miller, he admitted to being on methamphetamine and suffering from sleepless paranoia. Despite numerous commands to drop the weapons, he refused to disarm, advancing instead toward the officers. In the final seconds, he raised the knife and hammer overhead, closing to within just a few yards before both officers discharged their firearms. The review confirms that the entire encounter from first visual contact to the final shot lasted less than a minute. What began as a welfare check spiraled into a fatal confrontation in the span of mere seconds. As the night wears on, evidence technicians continue their work. Camera flashes strobe across the small parking lot, illuminating the scene in stark bursts of white light. Yellow crime scene tape flutters gently in the cool breeze, stretching between two light poles and the corner of a nearby apartment building. By midnight, the once quiet complex has become a sea of patrol cars and floodlights. Every motion, the placement of markers, the collection of casings, the positioning of the body is recorded for the official report. When the forensic teams finally finish, the weapons are laid side by side on a tarp near the evidence table. The hammer, the knife, and the spike, each tagged and photographed. The image, later included in the case file, would serve as a grim snapshot of the confrontation that unfolded. The Ada County Coroner's Office later confirms the cause of death: multiple gunshot wounds, consistent with both officers firing during the charge. The ruling homicide by firearm is procedural, not criminal. No officers are injured during the incident. As dawn approaches, the lights dim, and officers begin to clear the area. Reporters arrive just beyond the tape line, gathering details from the public information officer. Detectives speak in hushed tones near the command van, reviewing early findings and planning follow-up interviews with witnesses. The once chaotic parking lot begins to return to silence. Only the sound of camera shutters and rustling paper remains. Faint outlines of evidence markers dot the ground where Christian fell. When the last patrol units finally depart, the yellow tape flutters in the faint morning breeze, catching the glow of the rising Sunday. The asphalt still bears the marks of a life lost, faint stains, a scattering of gravel, a memory etched into the quiet of Dale Street. For investigators, the case becomes another example of the volatile unpredictability of welfare calls, how a plea for help can, without warning, turn into a confrontation that tests training, composure, and human restraint in a single, irreversible moment. Fountain, Colorado, the 19th of May, 2023. Late at night, just after 11 p.m., officers with the Fountain Police Department are dispatched to a small home at 3 Taos Circle for reports of a domestic disturbance. When officers arrive, they find 5 one-year-old James Boyle waiting in the front yard. He explains that his wife, Shauna Boyle, locked him out of their home. Boyle claims he tried to climb through a window to get back inside. He also warns the officers about his dog, an aggressive pit bull, and says plainly, "Don't shoot my dog." Officers allow Boyle back into the residence. They note in their report that he's hostile toward law enforcement, argumentative, and visibly intoxicated. Before leaving, they record a note. Any future calls to the Boyle residence should have at least 2 officers respond. The situation de-escalates, but only for the night. The next evening, the 20th of May, 2023, around 6 p.m., dispatch once again receives a domestic disturbance call from the same address. Corporal Zachary Corey and Officer Destin Alvarez are dispatched. When they arrive, the scene seems calm. They speak briefly with James Boyle outside the home. As they begin to clear, a car pulls up. Behind the wheel is Brett Boyle James and Shauna's adult son. Brett steps out, anxious, telling officers that his father is threatening to kill his mother. He adds that James has assaulted her before and that there are firearms inside the home, though he's unsure where they are. That statement changes everything. Corporal Corey and Officer Alvarez decide to contact Shauna Boyle directly for her account. They drive their marked patrol units to the front of the trailer and park. Moments later, both James and Shauna emerge onto the small front porch. Bodycam footage shows Corporal Corey standing at the base of the steps, calling out, "James, come over and talk to me for a second." Boyle shakes his head. "Am I under arrest?" he asks. Corporal Corey replies calmly, "No, we've just gotten several calls about disturbances here, including last night." Boyle scoffs in disbelief. "I don't believe you." He begins to back away, stepping toward the front door of the trailer. Then both hands slide into his pockets. Corey immediately warns him, "James, take your hands out of your pockets." But Boyle doesn't listen. He turns and starts to open the front door. Corey moves fast, grabbing Boyle's arm to prevent him from entering. Inside that house, officers know are firearms and possibly an unstable suspect. In an instant, a physical struggle erupts on the porch. Corey pushes against Boyle, trying to stop him from forcing the door open. Boyle loses his balance, falling backward, and lands directly on top of Shauna, who's standing just behind him. The door flies open. From inside, the family's pit bull bursts through. It lunges straight toward Officer Alvarez, knocking him to the ground and biting his face and arm. The camera shakes violently as Alvarez tries to push the dog away, shouting in pain. He finally manages to break free, drawing his service weapon while still on the ground. He fires 4 rounds, killing the dog instantly. The scene is chaos. Gun smoke drifts through the humid night air, hanging low like a pale fog illuminated by the flickering porch light. The echo of the last gunshot still lingers, fading into the barking of distant dogs and the mechanical hiss of police radios. James Boyle lies on the ground, motionless for only a moment. Then, astonishingly, he begins to move. His body tenses, his face twisted with rage. With a guttural shout, he forces himself upright, staggering to his feet. Officer Alvarez, still recovering from the earlier struggle and the bites on his arm, tries to steady himself. He steps back, breathing hard, weapon trained but posture uncertain. Boyle's eyes lock on him, wild, unfocused, and angry. He starts moving forward again, his steps uneven but deliberate, driven by adrenaline and fury. Alvarez quickly holsters his firearm and draws his taser, his voice cutting through the confusion. "James, stop right there." The shout echoes off the nearby houses. The beam from his flashlight catches the glint of sweat on Boyle's face and the faint tremor in his raised hands. Corporal Corey, positioned a few feet away near the edge of the porch, mirrors the tension. His stance is firm, his weapon still drawn, his voice sharp and commanding. "Don't move. I'll use deadly force if I have to." But Boyle doesn't stop. Instead, he turns slightly, his hand reaching again for the front door handle, as though trying to force his way back inside. Corey's voice rises, controlled but urgent, repeating the order. "Stop now. Stop. Stop now. Stop." Each command grows louder, more desperate, but Boyle ignores them all. The officers exchange a quick glance, a split second of mutual understanding in the chaos. Then Alvarez pulls the trigger on his taser. The device snaps and crackles with a bright electric arc as the prongs strike Boyle's chest. For an instant, the electricity hums through the air, but there's no visible reaction. Boyle doesn't flinch. He doesn't fall. He keeps moving, gritting his teeth, his arm still reaching for the door. It's as if the current barely touched him. In that split second, before another decision can be made, Corporal Corey fires. Two sharp reports ring out in rapid succession, echoing across the yard. The muzzle flashes light up the porch brief, blinding bursts of orange against the night. Both rounds strike James Boyle squarely in the back. He stiffens, staggers forward, and collapses hard onto the wooden porch. The sound of his fall, the dull thud of his body hitting the steps, is followed by an abrupt, heavy silence. Smoke curls from Corey's weapon as he lowers it. For a heartbeat, no one speaks. Then, both officers spring into motion. Corey holsters his firearm, rushing toward the downed man. "Get medics now," he shouts into his radio as he kneels beside Boyle. His hands move instinctively, checking for a pulse, assessing the wounds. Officer Alvarez, bleeding from multiple dog bites and visibly shaken, moves to assist. Despite his own injuries, he kneels beside Corey, helping to perform chest compressions. Their voices overlap, one counting, one encouraging. "Come on, James, stay with us." Bodycam footage captures the intensity the officers working in near darkness, illuminated only by their flashlights and the steady strobe of red-blue lights from nearby patrol cars. Their uniforms are torn, their faces streaked with sweat and dirt. Each push of their hands against Boyle's chest is deliberate, rhythmic, desperate. Moments later, the distant wail of sirens grows louder. Flashing lights paint the front yard as paramedics from the Fountain Fire Department arrive on scene. They move quickly, unpacking trauma kits, cutting open Boyle's shirt, inserting IV lines, and applying defibrillator pads. The officers step back slightly but remain close, watching as medics work frantically for several minutes. After multiple cycles of CPR and emergency interventions, Boyle is placed on a stretcher. The stretcher wheels bump down the porch steps, guided by gloved hands. He's loaded into the waiting ambulance, which speeds away into the night with lights flashing. Hours later, James Boyle is pronounced deceased at the hospital. The official cause: 2 gunshot wounds to the back.
Denver police, drop the gun! This area is known for high gang activity. I don't want you touching it. Holy shit!
Denver, Colorado, November 27. The evening air hangs cold and thin over the Cedar Run apartment complex in the Washington, Virginia Vale neighborhood. It's quiet here, rows of beige buildings, the hum of distant traffic on Oneida Street, and a few porch lights flickering against the dusk. 2 Denver Police Department officers are on extra patrol, a standard precaution after a string of recent car break-ins. Their body cams capture the rhythm of boots on pavement and muffled radio chatter as they move through the lot. Suddenly, a faint noise breaks the monotony. Loud music, bass-heavy and echoing off the parked cars. They follow the sound toward the northeast corner of the parking lot, where a man stands next to a pickup truck, moving boxes from the back seat to the bed. The man is later identified as 3 two-year-old Zachary Yates. One officer calls out casually at first, "Hey, how's it going tonight?" Yates glances over, expression calm but guarded. He continues stacking the boxes, muttering something under his breath. The officers step closer, flashlights reflecting off the metallic surface of the truck. It's then they notice something, a handgun, tucked between Yates's pants and his belt, unholstered, sitting plainly at the small of his back. The tone shifts immediately. "Keep your hands where we can see them," one officer says. You've got a firearm on you. Don't reach for it. Yates
All right,
straightens,
easy.
raising his
I'm putting my
hands
hands where you
slightly,
can
but
see 'em.
not fully.
Let's
His
just talk
voice
about this.
is steady, defiant. Yeah, I got a gun. I've got a permit. What's the problem? The officers exchange a glance. Denver's municipal law is clear. High-capacity magazines and certain firearms are prohibited within city limits. Whether or not he has a permit, carrying this weapon is unlawful here. Sir, in Denver, you can't have that firearm on you. We need to secure it. Please don't reach toward your back, the officer repeats. Yates doesn't move. He just stares. I'm not doing anything wrong, he says. You're harassing me. His tone grows sharper, defensive. He keeps his hands low at his sides, refusing to lift them fully as the officers request. For several long seconds, no one moves. The standoff feels delicate, every motion deliberate, every breath measured. Then one officer steps slightly closer. Sir, we're not here to fight with you. We just need to make sure everyone's safe. Step away from the truck, slowly. Yates shakes his head. No, man, I'm not going anywhere. I've got rights. The officers stay calm but firm. They remind him multiple times that he's illegally carrying a weapon inside Denver city limits. The conversation stretches on for nearly 4 minutes, 4 tense, unbroken minutes of commands, refusals, and growing frustration. Through it all, Yates's hands remain dangerously low, his right one hovering near his waistband. The officer warns him again, Zachary, don't reach behind you, don't do it, but the moment is coming fast. It happens in an instant. Yates turns his torso slightly and reaches behind his back, right toward where the Glock sits tucked into his waistband. Both officers react at once. Don't reach, hands up, but it's too late. The officers see the movement, the unmistakable pull toward a gun. 5 shots explode in the dark. The first 3 come almost simultaneously, followed by 2 more in rapid succession. Yates jerks backward, stumbling against the pickup truck before collapsing onto the cold asphalt. His body cam catches the faint echo of brass casings bouncing near the tires. The officers immediately shift from defense to rescue mode. Shots fired. Suspect down. Roll medical now. One yells into his radio. They approach cautiously, scanning for the firearm. The Glock 17 lies partially under Yates's torso, the grip slick with dust and blood. One officer kicks it away carefully while the other kneels beside Yates. Stay with me, man. Stay with me, he says, pressing a gloved hand to the wound near Yates's lower torso. Yates groans softly, his face pale under the flashing lights. Blood seeps through his sweatshirt, pooling beneath him. Where's he hit?
Once in the side,
Looks
once
like
in the leg.
twice. Once in the side, once in the leg. The officer replies, breath heavy. The radio chatter grows frantic as Denver Fire and EMS units race toward the scene. Neighbors emerge from apartment balconies, their faces illuminated by flashing red and blue. Within minutes, paramedics arrive, carrying trauma kits and oxygen tanks. The officers step back as medics take over, pulses strong. One medic says, "Let's get him stabilized." They work methodically, applying pressure dressings, securing IV lines, and preparing a stretcher. The Glock, now secured in an evidence bag, is examined by detectives. It's loaded, 1 round in the chamber, 16 in the magazine. That's a 17-round capacity, a configuration banned under Denver city law. A detective shakes his head, quietly confirming that firearms prohibited here. The officers stand silently nearby, adrenaline still coursing through their veins. It's been less than 10 minutes since they first made contact, and yet everything, the music, the boxes, the argument, has vanished into the chaos of flashing lights and procedural commands. As Yates is lifted onto the stretcher, one officer leans down, still trying to make sense of it. "Why'd you reach, man? You had time. We were talking." Yates doesn't respond. He's loaded into the ambulance and rushed toward Denver Health Medical Center. His condition serious but stable. By morning, the Cedar Run apartments are quiet again. The only trace of the shooting is a small patch of dried blood near the northeast corner and a few yellow markers left behind by crime scene technicians. Detectives from the Denver Police Department's Major Crimes Division and the Office of the Independent Monitor begin reviewing the incident. They collect bodycam footage, shell casings, ballistic trajectories, and statements from both officers and witnesses. The footage shows everything clearly. 4 minutes of calm negotiation, repeated warnings not to reach, and a final, fatal gesture that triggered the gunfire. The officers, following protocol, are placed on administrative leave pending the investigation. Their names are withheld until the internal review concludes. Meanwhile, hospital staff confirm that Zachary Yates survives his injuries after surgery. He's listed in stable condition within 24 hours of the incident. A few days later, police released the recovered firearm details. A Glock 17, loaded, with a 17-round magazine and one chambered bullet. Under Denver's firearm ordinances, both the gun and the magazine capacity are illegal. Investigators also discover that Yates did not have a valid concealed carry permit issued for Denver County, despite his claims during the encounter. At a press conference, a DPD spokesperson outlines the findings. Officers encountered an armed individual who repeatedly refused lawful commands and reached for his firearm. Their response was immediate and in accordance with department policy. No officers were injured in the confrontation. Weeks later, Yates is formally charged with unlawful carrying of a firearm and prohibited possession of a high-capacity magazine. He pleads not guilty, claiming he believed his concealed carry license allowed him to carry anywhere in Colorado. But prosecutors point out that Denver's local firearm restrictions supersede state-level permits. As the legal process unfolds, community reactions are mixed. Some argue the shooting was preventable, that officers could have waited longer, used more time to de-escalate. Others see the footage differently. A split-second reaction to a dangerous reach that could have ended with officers dead. Experts in use of force analysis later confirm that the officers acted within national protocol, noting that when a suspect reaches toward a visible firearm after multiple warnings, officers are trained to treat it as an imminent threat. By early December, Yates is released from the hospital and booked into the Denver County Jail. He remains under medical supervision while awaiting trial. Months later, the Cedar Run complex looks unchanged: quiet parking lots, faded signs, children riding scooters along the walkways. But for the officers who were there that night, the memory doesn't fade. The internal investigation eventually clears both of them, citing that their actions were consistent with Denver Police Department policy and Colorado state law regarding the use of deadly force. Both returned to active duty after mandatory retraining and psychological evaluation. In an official report, the shooting is summarized in 3 brief paragraphs. On the 27th of November 2023, 2 Denver police officers conducting extra patrol observed an armed individual in the Cedar Run apartments. The suspect refused to comply and reached toward a firearm concealed in his waistband. 2 officers discharged their service weapons, striking the suspect twice. Officers rendered immediate medical aid. The case serves as yet another reminder in modern policing. There are no routine stops. Every encounter can shift from conversation to survival in the blink of an eye. Chicago, Illinois, the 6th of November 2023. A gray, overcast afternoon settles over the south side, where sirens and city noise merge into the constant hum of daily life. 3 Chicago Police Department officers and a sergeant patrol the neighborhood in an unmarked police vehicle assigned to a proactive street unit tasked with monitoring high-crime corridors. They've been briefed earlier that day about a 2-year-old man named Trenza Campbell, known in the area, reportedly involved in several disturbances over the past week. Shortly after 3 p.m., while driving along a narrow residential block, the sergeant spots a figure matching Campbell's description, a man walking along the sidewalk near South Vernon Avenue, wearing a dark jacket, jeans, and a beanie. The sergeant slows the unmarked car and calls it out over the radio. Possible contact, South Vernon, male matching description, approaching on foot. The officers step out of the vehicle, spreading into a cautious formation. One of them raises a hand. "Hey man, can we talk to you for a second?" Campbell turns, his face unreadable. "What's this about?" he asks. The sergeant responds calmly. "We just need to ask you a few questions, nothing major." Campbell hesitates, looking at the 4 plainclothes officers. His body tenses slightly, then he turns and starts walking away. "Sir, stop. We just need to talk." One officer calls out. Campbell doesn't stop. The officers close in, spreading around him in a semicircle to block the sidewalk. The air grows tight with tension. Bodycam footage shows the sergeant extending an open hand, not a weapon, as he speaks firmly. "Relax, man. Let's just figure this out." Campbell's pace quickens. He looks over his shoulder, muttering something under his breath. Then, in a single motion, he pulls away as one officer reaches for his arm. The contact sparks an instant reaction. A physical struggle erupts in the middle of the street. Within seconds, the calm stop dissolves into chaos, voices overlapping, commands shouted over one another. "Stop resisting. Hands behind your back." But Campbell refuses. He twists, shoves, and the body cams capture glimpses of a sudden glint, something metallic flashing near his waistline. In the span of a heartbeat, everything changes. Campbell draws a firearm. The metallic flash becomes unmistakable as he extends his arm and fires. The shot cracks through the air, echoing between the brick buildings. One officer stumbles back, clutching his arm, blood seeping through his sleeve. Panic erupts. Officer hit. Shots fired. Shots fired. The sergeant dives for cover behind a parked vehicle as the other 2 officers draw their weapons. "Drop it! Drop the gun!" someone yells. But Campbell doesn't stop. He swings the weapon toward the group, his movements frantic and uneven. The sergeant rises, positioning himself between his wounded officer and the suspect. He takes aim. 3 sharp bursts of gunfire ring out in rapid succession. Then 2 more. The volley echoes down the block. Neighbors duck inside doorways as glass shatters from a nearby car window. When the shots cease, Campbell collapses onto the pavement, the handgun still clutched in his right hand. For a moment, all that can be heard is the heavy breathing of the officers and the faint hiss of a police radio. "Suspect down," the sergeant calls in, voice steady but shaking slightly. "Need an ambulance. Officer hit. Suspect down, weapon recovered." The officers move carefully toward Campbell. One kicks the firearm away, clearing the immediate threat. The sergeant kneels beside the downed man, checking for a pulse. "He's still breathing," he says. "Get me a medkit now." Blood stains the concrete beneath Campbell as the officers begin chest compressions. The sergeant applies gauze to a wound on Campbell's torso, working in sync with another officer administering rescue breaths. At the same time, two other officers turn their focus to their injured colleague, a male officer in his late 20s, hit once in the arm. He's pale but alert, assuring the others he's okay. "I'm good," he mutters, gritting his teeth. "Just burns like hell." Within minutes, the distant wail of sirens grows louder as Chicago Fire Department paramedics arrive. They split into two teams, one tending to the wounded officer, the other to Campbell. The sergeant steps back, his hands streaked with blood, as paramedics take over CPR. Despite their efforts, Campbell's breathing slows. He's placed on a stretcher and rushed to a nearby hospital. But within the hour, he's pronounced dead. At the scene, the sergeant stares silently as crime scene tape goes up around the block. He exhales, the reality setting in another fatal encounter in a city already on edge from months of escalating gun violence. By sunrise, local news outlets have the headline, "Man killed, officer injured in Southside police shooting." The Chicago Police Department holds a brief press conference confirming the details. A 2-year-old male suspect, identified as Trenza Campbell, fired first during a physical altercation with officers. One officer was struck in the arm, treated at the hospital, and released in good condition. Superintendent's spokesperson states, "Our officers responded with deadly force to an immediate threat. The suspect discharged a firearm, striking one of our own." Detectives from COPA, the Civilian Office of Police Accountability, and the Illinois State Police Public Integrity Task Force arrive to investigate. Every shell casing, trajectory mark, and audio clip is analyzed. The recovered weapon is logged a semi-automatic handgun found near Campbell's right hand. It's confirmed to have been fired at least once. Witnesses tell investigators they heard the argument escalate but didn't see who fired first. The Bodycam footage fills in the blanks, capturing the moment Campbell's arm extends, followed by the muzzle flash. The independent review later verifies Campbell discharged his weapon first, prompting officers to return fire. Inside the department, the sergeant and the two officers involved in the shooting are placed on administrative leave, standard in all officer-involved incidents. The wounded officer recovers quickly, returning to light duty within 2 weeks. The city's use of force board later concludes that the officer's actions were objectively reasonable and in defense of life. Still, the community response is mixed. Residents question the circumstances that led to the stop, why Campbell was approached, and whether the encounter could have been de-escalated before gunfire erupted. In the days that follow, vigils appear on the block where the shooting occurred. Candles, flowers, and handwritten notes bearing Campbell's name. His family releases a brief statement through an attorney. Trenza struggled, but he was a son and a brother. We are still trying to understand how this happened. The Chicago Police Department issues its own formal report. On the 6th of November 2023, members of the Chicago Police Department attempted to conduct a lawful street stop involving 3 two-year-old Trenza Campbell. During the encounter, Campbell discharged a firearm, striking an officer. Officers returned fire, fatally wounding Campbell. A firearm was recovered on scene. One officer sustained non-life-threatening injuries and has since been released from medical care. No further charges are filed. The case is officially closed as justified use of deadly force. By winter, the scene looks unchanged. The same cracked pavement, the same parked cars lining the curb. But for those who were there, that moment plays on repeat. For the officers, it's a day marked not by victory, but by survival. For Campbell's family, it's a day frozen in disbelief. One more life cut short in a city where sirens never stop echoing. The sergeant later reflects in an internal debriefing. He had a gun. He fired first. But you still think about it. You think about what else could have been done, even when you know you didn't have a choice. In the end, the body cam footage tells a story both familiar and tragic one, where a routine stop spirals in seconds and split-second decisions leave permanent consequences. A city heals, debates, and moves on, but the echoes of that November afternoon remain, carried in the hollow sound of 5 gunshots between the buildings on South Vernon Avenue.
I'm gonna be sorry here soon.
You're gonna be sorry?
Yes.
What do you mean?
Delta, Colorado, the 10th of October 2023. At approximately 10 a.m., dispatchers at the Delta Police Department receive a 911 call from a woman on Burt Street. The caller reports that a strange man is in her driveway, someone she doesn't know, and that he has entered her home through a window and then exited through the back door. Officers are dispatched immediately to the area of 157 Burt Street. Because of confusion about the exact address, Officer Mark Bowen is the first to arrive. His patrol unit rolls slowly onto the quiet residential street, lined with single-story homes, trees beginning to lose their autumn leaves, and an RV parked in one driveway. As Bowen pulls up, he sees a man walking toward his patrol car. The man's posture is tense, his movements erratic. This is 4 3-year-old Jeremy Kuzov. Body cam footage shows Bowen lowering his window as Kuzov approaches. Kuzov's first words are startling.
Sorry,
"You know
soon.
I'm gonna be
You're gonna be sorry?
here
Yes.
soon."
What do you mean?
Bowen,
Well, what are you getting on
keeping
me for?
calm,
Okay,
asks,
so
I'm gonna be sorry here soon.
you're gonna
"You're
be sorry?
going to be
Yes.
sorry?"
What do you mean?
Well,
What do you
are getting on
mean?
me for?
Okay,
Kuzov
so-
doesn't answer directly. He steps back against the patrol car, voice rising. "What are you getting on me for? This botch just killed my kid." His tone is angry, his body restless, hands running through his hair, arms crossing, breathing deep, pacing, jaw tight. Bowen keeps his distance and asks, "Okay, so why are you going into the house?" Kuzov responds quickly, "Because I was looking for my daughter." The situation escalates rapidly. Bowen decides to detain Kuzov to prevent further escalation. He steps forward, instructing him to turn around and place his hands behind his back. Kuzov resists. He shouts, "No!" taking several steps backward. Bowen draws his taser, warning him to comply. But within seconds, Kuzov charges forward, swinging. The body cam captures the blur of movement, Kuzov attempting to grab the taser while throwing punches. At least one connects, striking Bowen in the head. Bowen fires the taser. The probes hit, but appear ineffective. Kuzov keeps coming, shouting incoherently, kicking, pushing. The two move south down Burt Street, struggling as Bowen backs away, still issuing commands. Nearby residents begin to emerge, drawn by the noise. One bystander, identified later only as P.O., steps forward, trying to calm Kuzov. For a brief moment, it works. Kuzov backs up onto the sidewalk, breathing heavily. Bowen regains distance, transitioning from his taser to his firearm. He issues clear, loud orders. Put your hands up. Get on the ground. But Kuzov doesn't obey. He begins pacing in front of a residence, yelling and gesturing toward the officer. At one point, he shouts, "I'm gonna light this mother-f***er up," and points in Bowen's direction. His agitation only grows. Bowen continues to give repeated verbal commands, trying to de-escalate. Finally, Kuzov appears to calm down. He places his hands on his head, breathing hard, muttering under his breath. Bowen steps closer, attempting to safely detain him before he lashes out again. Then suddenly, Kuzov drops his hands and turns away, beginning to run. The movement is fast and abrupt. Fearing another charge or a potential attack, Bowen fires a single shot. The round strikes Kuzov in the back, near the left side of his chest. Kuzov stumbles forward, leaning against the nearby RV parked in the driveway. Bowen immediately radios for help. Shots fired. Need medical. Send an ambulance now. Despite being hit, Kuzov continues to move. Bowen closes the distance, attempting to restrain him. The body cam shows both men struggling as Bowen takes Kuzov down to the ground beside the RV. Backup units arrive within moments. Officers assist Bowen in securing Kuzov in handcuffs. Medics are already en route. Within minutes, paramedics from Delta County EMS arrive. They begin emergency treatment on scene, stabilizing Kuzov before transporting him to the nearest hospital. At the hospital, doctors work to assess the damage. Kuzov's injuries are serious: a gunshot wound to the chest, multiple left rib fractures, and a lung contusion but no abdominal trauma. He spends time in the intensive care unit, on a ventilator, but ultimately survives. Toxicology results later show the presence of amphetamines, methamphetamines, opiates, and benzodiazepines in his system, substances known to heighten aggression and blunt pain response, explaining why the taser had no effect earlier in the altercation. Meanwhile, investigators from the District Attorney's Office and Delta Police Department begin a full review of the incident. The video evidence, radio logs, and witness statements all confirm the sequence. A citizen calls 911 about a suspicious intruder. Officer Bowen arrives, makes contact with an agitated suspect. The suspect resists, attacks, and charges the officer. Non-lethal options fail. A single shot is fired during a rapid, high-risk movement. Following review, the District Attorney's Office rules that Officer Bowen's use of force was legally justified, citing self-defense, defense of others, and mistake of fact under the circumstances. No criminal charges are filed. Kuzov is later released from medical care and booked on multiple charges related to the incident, including assaulting an officer and resisting arrest. The footage becomes part of Delta Police Department's training and transparency release, illustrating how quickly an encounter can turn from conversation to life-threatening struggle in seconds. As the report closes, the statement from the DA emphasizes the core finding. Officer Bowen acted lawfully and in defense of his life during a volatile, unpredictable confrontation with a violent and intoxicated individual. Utica, New York, the 28th of June 2024. It's a late Friday evening. The time is 10:18 p.m., and officers from the Utica Police Department are on proactive patrol in the West Utica area near Shaw Street. Their assignment comes directly from the Criminal Investigations Division, assist ongoing investigations into 2 recent robberies where victims reported being threatened at gunpoint. In both cases, the suspects had brandished a black handgun while demanding property. The most recent incident occurred the night before, on June 27th. Victims described the suspects as 2 juveniles, one on foot and another on a bicycle. As officers patrol the area, their attention locks on 2 young males walking along the road. The boys match the physical descriptions and general appearance provided by the victims, and they are in the same vicinity around the same time of night as the prior robberies. The officers take notice one of the youths, later identified as 13-year-old Naya Emway, is walking in the roadway, a violation of New York State Vehicle and Traffic Law 1156A. Body-worn cameras record as officers slow their patrol car and pull up near the 2 juveniles. The intent is to conduct a stop, identify them, and question them briefly, part of the CID's request to interview anyone matching the robbery suspect's characteristics. The officers step out of their vehicle. Their tone is calm, procedural. One officer calls out, "Hey guys, come here for a second." Both youths hesitate. The officers explain why they're stopping them, that there have been robberies nearby, and they just need to check things out. At first, the scene remains uneventful, but as an officer begins to pat-frisk Naya for weapons, everything changes in a split second. Naya suddenly pulls away and runs. The camera footage jolts with movement as the officers give chase down the dimly lit street. Streetlights cast long shadows across the asphalt as Naya sprints ahead. One officer shouts, "Stop, police, stop running!" As Naya turns mid-run, his hand raises, holding what appears to be a black handgun. In the chaos and motion of the pursuit, the shape and posture are unmistakable. Officers later describe that, in that moment, it appeared Naya was pointing a firearm directly at them. Officer Bryce Patterson is closest behind. He reacts instinctively, taking cover behind a parked vehicle for a brief second before moving forward again. Naya keeps running. Patterson closes the distance, lunging forward and tackling him to the ground. The 2 struggle violently on the pavement. Bodycam footage shows Patterson shouting commands as the fight continues. "Drop it! Drop it!" Naya's hand still clutches the black object. During the struggle, he moves his arm upward. At that moment, Officer Patrick Husney, seeing the confrontation unfold from just feet away, fires a single shot. The report echoes through the night, 1 gunshot, then silence. The round strikes Naya in the chest. Patterson immediately rolls off, shouting for medical aid. Officers radio, "Shots fired, shots fired, need EMS now." They begin life-saving measures within seconds, checking for a pulse, beginning chest compressions, and applying trauma care. Paramedics from Utica Fire Department and Wynn Hospital EMS arrive moments later. The 13-year-old is loaded into an ambulance and rushed to Wynn Hospital. Despite the rapid response, Naya Emway is pronounced deceased shortly after arrival. As the scene stabilizes, investigators secure the area. Evidence markers are placed near the sidewalk where the struggle occurred. On the ground beside Naya's discarded hand lies the weapon that triggered the entire confrontation. Not a real handgun, but a BB or pellet gun. It's a black replica, modeled closely after a Glock 17 Gen 5, complete with a detachable magazine. The weapon lacks the orange safety marking typically found on toy or airsoft guns, making it visually indistinguishable from a real firearm, especially in the dark. Detectives photograph the item, confirming its design and appearance. Later, an image released by Utica police highlights just how realistic the replica appeared. No visible indicators that it wasn't lethal. Meanwhile, the parallel investigations begin. The Criminal Investigations Division leads the Homicide Review. The Internal Affairs Bureau begins a standard officer-involved shooting inquiry. The District Attorney's Office is notified for oversight. Statements from witnesses, officers, and supervisors are collected throughout the night. The timeline becomes clear. Officers patrolling an active robbery area encountered two juveniles matching suspect descriptions. A lawful citizen stop is initiated under CID direction. Upon attempted frisk, one juvenile flees. During flight, the juvenile points a realistic firearm at pursuing officers. Officers engage in a physical struggle. One fires a single shot. By early morning, the investigation confirms that both officers followed departmental protocol when responding to a perceived deadly threat. The community of Utica wakes to the news a 3-year-old boy shot and killed by police, holding what was later confirmed to be a replica gun. Press conferences and public statements emphasized the same fact repeated in reports. The device resembled a Glock 17, lacked safety markings, and was indistinguishable from a real firearm. Inside the department, both Officer Bryce Patterson and Officer Patrick Housnay are placed on standard administrative leave pending review. The tragedy becomes a flashpoint for conversation around juvenile crime, replica firearms, and split-second decision-making under threat. By the end of the day, the official report closes with the same sequence written in every line of evidence: a lawful investigative stop, a sudden flight, and a single fatal round fired in response to what officers believed was an immediate threat of gunfire.